So let's go right into this. I'm actually doing my own listening and digesting of some stuff. So um, the topic for today, is Healthy Mental Thursday. Um, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? If you're familiar with the song, what's on your mind? All right. So here we go. That's what's up. All right. I'll start here. Oh, they ain't got nothing good I can use. Yeah, they ain't got nothing good I can use. All right. Cool. We'll go back here then. All right. That just made me laugh. All right. It's actually a song. That's why I'm laughing. We do this every time. Mm, okay.
Why is everyone spiraling over YouTube banning ad blockers? Like, chill guys, just use Pi. It's a free Chrome extension that's actually made by one.
What does it mean to be mentally tough? Think of it this way. You work out and exercise to gain physical strength, and the discipline and time you invest in your physical health helps you to feel better overall. This same idea can be applied to mental toughness. When you have a tougher mentality, you'll mentally and emotionally feel better overall. You're able to cope better with stressful and overwhelming seasons in your life. You're more capable of handling fear and doubt because you have the mental fortitude to deal with them. Want to learn how to become mentally tougher? We're gonna let you in on some secrets to do so. Number one, get an emotional trash can. Are you where you want to be in life? Do you feel stuck in negative thought patterns? Negative thoughts are often what bar you from where you want to be. Negative thoughts can fill you with dread and anxiety and wind up emotionally harming you. Mental strength is hard to develop when you have a negative mindset. One solution to this would be to get an emotional trash can. The point of having this trash can is so that you can throw away your doubts, worries, and fears to gain better respite and mental clarity. You could try journaling or find a creative outlet for your emotions, or reach out to a therapist. Trashing those bad thoughts and dealing with them in a healthy manner gives you a chance to process them and get to a resolution. With a clearer and more positive mindset, it will be easier for you to focus on what you want and where you want to be. Number two, acknowledge and use the power of choice. Do you sometimes feel pressured to make the right choice? Are you worried about disappointing others or letting other people down if you make the wrong choice? Let me let you in on a secret. There is no such thing as the right choice. Choices that are honest and in tune with what you want or need at that moment are considered to be the right choice for you. The right choice is dependent on where you want to go and how you want to get there. If you find yourself feeling uncertain or unclear, make a list of your present goals. Figure out what you're willing to let go of, especially if you know that it doesn't serve you, and what you're grateful for, and what you truly want to focus on. Number 3, do the difficult things first. Life gets messy and sticky, and sometimes we can find ourselves in some pretty bad situations. Everyone, at some point, has run away from something difficult. It's perfectly normal to want to run away when things get harder and more difficult for you. It can feel overwhelming and impossible, like climbing over a mountain. But sometimes, in order to move forward, we have to figure out how to get through those difficult times. And you certainly don't have to do it alone. Find a support group that'll be able to provide comfort, support, and strength for you. There are people that can walk with you through this difficult time and help you to safely reach the other side of the mountain. Number 4, exercise. Even though physical exercise is mostly for your physical benefit, it has mental benefits too. Physical exercise helps you establish discipline. The discipline of the mind is necessary for developing your mental toughness because it helps you build consistency. When you're steadfastly committed to building up your mental fortitude, negativity has a harder time of tripping you up. Regular exercise gives you a sense of routine, consistency, and the added benefit of providing a healthy outlet for your emotions and stress. Number 5, learn how to lose gracefully. Despite how unpleasant it might be, failure can be the ultimate teacher. When you're dealing with failure, sometimes the resulting anxiety and stress can weigh you down. This keeps you from learning from your mistakes, whatever the lesson might be. Take the time to sit with your thoughts and work through the feelings that you're experiencing. Ask yourself, what is the lesson here, and how do I move forward? Once you're able to take accountability for yourself, it's easier to move forward and not make those same mistakes a second time. Number 6, practice gratitude, even when you're going through a difficult season. Does it feel hard to be grateful, especially when you're going through a difficult season in life? Sometimes it can be easier to focus on the negative things around you, but practicing gratitude increases your overall happiness, reduces depression, and helps you override negative thought patterns. When you focus on what to be thankful for, you'll find happiness and lightness take hold within your heart. Being grateful and having an open heart helps you to focus on your goals and dreams so you can go forth and achieve them. And number 7, let go of things you cannot control. Do you find it hard to let things go? Do you always want to fix everything and feel like you're the only one who can do it? It is tempting to want to control everything yourself, especially when things start going downhill. But eventually, something has to give. When things go wrong, ask yourself, is this something I can solve? And if so, how? What is your role in the process of achieving a solution? Learning to let go of things that are out of your control will make you feel less stressed and help you have a clearer mind. How do you feel about these secrets that we've just shared? It's not a secret anymore.
Right.
What are some other ways that you like to build your mental fortitude? Let us know in the comments below. Please like and share this video if it helped you and you think it could help someone else too. The studies and references used are listed in the description below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more Psych2Go videos. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Our man works alone.
Dang.
He never looks the same way twice.
And I'm in the middle of this
He's an
game.
exceptional assassin. I know.
Alright. Ooh.
Lust is a natural tendency. It's one that you must control, so it doesn't control you instead. But first, what exactly is lust? Well, lust is a strong, intense desire or craving, typically for sexual attraction to another person. It is driven by physical attraction and the need for sexual gratification. Unlike love, which involves deep emotional connection and attachment, lust is often immediate, intense, and primarily physical. It is influenced by biological and hormonal factors and tends to be short-term. Lust is like a coin with two sides, a good side and a bad side. So, what does lust do to your brain? For starters, social bonding. The release of oxytocin during sexual activity can enhance feelings of closeness and bonding, even if it's typically associated with longer-term relationships. Some amount of lust is needed for sexual attraction to happen. Increased pleasure. Lust leads to the release of dopamine, creating feelings of euphoria and pleasure. Enhanced motivation. The desire for physical connection can increase motivation and focus on achieving goals related to attraction. For example, becoming physically aesthetic. Boosted confidence. Sexual attraction and the pursuit of romantic interests can boost self-esteem and confidence. Improved physical health. Sexual activity driven by lust can lead to physical benefits such as exercise, cardiovascular health, and stress relief. Finding this video helpful? Give it a thumbs up and share and comment your thoughts below. On the other hand, unchecked lust can be quite damaging, particularly to your psyche.
I see.
Here are 3 ways. It impairs judgment. When lust takes over, the part of the brain responsible for logical reasoning, the prefrontal cortex, can become overshadowed by the reward center, the limbic system. This can lead to impulsive and risky behaviors like harassment and even abuse.
Hold on, that sound means
The
something.
combined effects of increased reward system activity
Chat or
and
something.
decreased prefrontal cortex function can impair your ability to make sound judgments. Mental health impact. Studies show there is a link between our sexual life and our confidence. Unfulfilled lust, or the consequences of impulsive behavior driven by lust, can contribute to feelings of anxiety, shame, or depression. Addiction-like cycle. Feeding your lust triggers a dopamine response in the brain, similar to how drug abuse does. This creates a pattern that can be very hard to break. A study from 2002 looked at how men's and women's brains react to erotic content. The findings showed that the same brain areas involved in reward and addiction were activated, indicating a similarity to the way drugs affect the brain. If lust is a problem you struggle with, consider these practical tips to overcome it. Acknowledge your feelings. The first step to dealing with a problem is admitting it. Don't be ashamed. Lust is a natural part of attraction, so don't beat yourself up for having it because the guilt itself is another problem that's unnecessary. Digital detox. Identify what triggers your lust. Be honest. What makes you lustful? Once you figure it out, consider avoiding these triggers. It could be certain songs, social media pages, or movies. Watching these things can make you see the world in a more sexual way, filling your mind with sexual thoughts and viewing people as sexual objects. According to a 2020 longitudinal study, compelling evidence shows that frequent pornography exposure is associated with negatively perceived body image and sexual body image. Be very intentional about the content you consume. Apps like Covenant Eyes are great tools to help block out pornographic content. Consciously distract yourself. If you start to feel lustful, attempt to distract yourself from it. This could be either something physical, such as going for a stroll or exercising, or something mental, such as reading a non-erotic book or working on puzzles like a Rubik's Cube or Nanogram that improves mindfulness. Focus on the long term. Remind yourself of the reasons you want to avoid acting on lust. This could be due to a devoted relationship or a desire to avoid undesirable consequences. Lust can lead you down a spiral, which can be difficult to come out of. However, it can also be a spark that can lead you to self-reflection and improvement. Put all that raw energy into creative projects, passionate pursuits, or a deeper connection with someone special. And remember, you are in control. What are your thoughts on this video? Let us know down below. Want to learn more about the dangers of lust and pornography?
Burnout. We all experience it at some point. It's so important to me that I've actually been working on it in therapy. In fact, with the help of BetterHelp, I've learned certain tactics and
Caffeine. It's everywhere. According to a 2013 study published in the Journal of Caffeine Research, caffeine is the most widely used drug in the world. In the United States, more than 90% of adults use it regularly, and among them, average consumption is more than 200 milligrams of caffeine per day. More caffeine than is contained in 2 6-ounce cups of coffee, or 5 12-ounce cans of soft drinks. While many coffee lovers and energy drink drinkers say they reap the benefits of having caffeine, is there a downside to it all? How exactly does caffeine affect your mental health? After all, it's been a much debated topic. So, let's take a look at whether caffeine is an overall benefit or risk to your mental health. Number 1. Should you have caffeine if you have a mood or anxiety disorder or a mental illness? Do you suffer from a mental illness? Do you also drink coffee? You may be wondering how this can affect your mental disorder. Well, after all, caffeine increases heart rate and blood pressure. So, what does this do to someone with, let's say, an anxiety disorder? In a Psychology Today article, the Bronfenbrenner Center for Translational Research notes that caffeine can trigger anxiety, especially when drinking more than 1 cup a day, and in people who are more sensitive to coffee's effects. The author notes that it is important to understand there are large differences in how individuals process and react to caffeine. So, have you noticed how caffeine affects your disorder symptoms? A study published in the journal Psychiatry Research focused on 43 patients and found that anxiety disorder patients have increased caffeine sensitivity, which leads to decreased consumption. It would seem to make sense that anxiety symptoms could indeed increase with even simply the increase in heart rate and blood pressure caffeine can provide. A 2005 Cambridge study published in the journal Advances in Psychiatric Treatment notes that psychiatrists rarely inquire about caffeine intake when assessing patients. This may lead to a failure to identify caffeine-related problems and offer appropriate interventions. Excessive caffeine ingestion leads to symptoms that overlap with those of many psychiatric disorders. Caffeine is implicated in the exacerbation of anxiety and sleep disorders, and people with eating disorders often misuse it too. It antagonizes adenosine receptors, which may potentiate dopaminergic activity and exacerbate psychosis. In psychiatric inpatients, caffeine has been found to increase anxiety, hostility, and psychotic symptoms. That seems like enough to not want to take another sip of that mocha, right? Well, kind of. There's also research out there that shows differing results, highlighting the benefits of caffeine. An article from NOCD explains that in a small study sponsored by Stanford University, 7 of 12 patients with OCD saw immediate improvement on 300 milligrams of coffee daily. The authors suggest that caffeine may work better in one concentrated dose each morning than spaced out throughout the day, and reminds us that caffeine remains a well-known anxiety producer in many people. So, while there are studies that suggest caffeine can be good and bad for your mental health, an important question to keep in mind is, what do you notice it doing to your mental health? Number 2, sleep disorders and insomnia. Most people will generally order a cup of coffee to stay awake and get some energy back. So it makes sense that you'll have trouble falling asleep when you drink a ton of caffeine. That same 2005 study published in the journal Advances in Psychiatric Treatment explains that caffeine reduces slow-wave sleep in the early part of the sleep cycle and can reduce rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, later in the cycle. Caffeine increases episodes of wakefulness, and high doses in the late evening can increase the time taken to fall asleep. So if you consume more caffeine than average, don't be too surprised if you struggle more and more with falling asleep. Number 3, mental performance. What about the benefits? There's quite a bit of research out there showing how caffeine can improve mental performance. Very Well Mind describes a 2012 study's results and found that caffeine was shown to improve performance on a range of different tasks, including vigilance,
Hey,
response
what's up,
times,
Zanita 67?
information processing, and some, but not all, proofreading tasks. Take it easy though. Don't think this means the more caffeine the better. The study also compared people with a low daily caffeine intake with those who consumed a lot of caffeine each day, and found that the improvements are not too significant. So the more caffeine you consume, the less improvements you'll see. Remember, moderation is key. Number 4, caffeine withdrawal. So, what happens if you drink a lot of caffeine each day and then suddenly stop? You may realize you've become dependent on it and experience caffeine withdrawal syndrome. An article by Stacy Liu published with the American Psychological Association explains that, according to the DSM-5, Caffeine withdrawal syndrome occurs when people skip a dose of caffeine and experience headaches, fatigues, depression, and trouble concentrating. She goes on to explain that research suggests many people use caffeine just to avoid these symptoms, though others, especially children and adolescents, may not understand why they feel sluggish and have a raging headache. So while it's nice to get a few cups of coffee each week, or drink down those energy drinks perhaps before a big soccer game, it's important to know what caffeine does to you. Feel great after a sip or two of that mocha? Go ahead and drink a cup or two if you enjoy it. Moderation is key. But if you're not feeling the benefits of caffeine, then maybe it's not worth all the buzz. Did you enjoy this video? If so, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more psychology content, and share this video with a coffee lover. Thanks for watching, Psych2Goers. See you next time.
That one was good.
So?
Has Kyrie texted you back?
I don't want to talk about it.
How was the math test?
Don't want to talk about it.
You need to talk to somebody. I talked to my Talkspace therapist.
Can't afford it. And still, don't want to talk about it.
Talkspace is super affordable, with or without insurance. And when you don't want to talk, you can just text them. Oh, look, my therapist just texted me.
Talkspace Therapy is in-network with most insurance plans. Go to Talkspace.com to get started.
The most common thing people say to others with mental illness is, it's okay not to be okay. But so many people need to hear that it's okay to be okay too. Our culture seems fixated on the melancholic and tragic, often turning sadness into something almost poetic. In a world that increasingly prizes happiness and success, many of us find ourselves drawn to the allure of sadness. We romanticize our melancholy, capturing it in songs, films, and social media posts that depict the beauty in our struggles. But what lies beneath this tendency, and how does it affect us? The cultural allure of sadness. In pop culture, sadness is often depicted as profound and meaningful. Think of the tragic backstories of many beloved characters. Harry Potter's loss of his parents, Katniss Everdeen's struggle against the Capitol, the heartbreaking deaths of Yuji's loved ones, much like Tanjiro with his siblings. Tragedy propels these stories forward, making us more invested in their characters. It's almost as if we crave sadness, agony, and tragedy. Romanticizing misery means seeing sadness as a beautiful, profound state of being. We often idealize our struggles through heartbreak songs, tear-jerking movies, and melancholic quotes, making sadness feel acceptable, even desirable. However, there's a fine line between romanticizing and accepting our emotions. Accepting sadness means acknowledging our feelings without judgment and allowing ourselves to process them healthily. The significant aspect of this cultural allure is the tortured artist trope. This narrative suggests that great art requires great suffering, leading to the romanticization of sadness and mental illness. Historical and contemporary figures like Vincent van Gogh, Sylvia Plath, and Kurt Cobain are often celebrated not only for their artistic genius, but also for their struggles with mental illness and emotional pain. Artists such as Mitski, Billie Eilish, and Lana Del Rey, often stereotyped for their melancholic music, have become some of the most acclaimed musicians of recent years. Social media amplifies this by promoting the idea that sharing our sadness is genuine and relatable. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok are rife with posts that glamorize sadness, often through beautifully edited videos or aesthetically pleasing photos paired with melancholic quotes. This trend extends to nostalgia, where we reminisce about past pains and heartbreaks, finding a strange comfort in our memories of suffering. Psychological underpinnings. Nietzsche once said, "Profound suffering makes noble, it separates." During adolescence, we all grapple with questions of identity. Who am I? What do I value? How do others see me? Psychologically, exploring sadness as a way to form our identity connects with Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. Erikson believed that during adolescence, we face the challenge of identity versus role confusion. This means we try to figure out who we are while dealing with pressures from society and our own desires. For some, embracing sadness or suffering can feel like asserting a unique identity, a departure from societal norms that push constant positivity and surface-level happiness. On the other hand, Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, which emphasizes finding meaning in suffering, suggests that people naturally seek significance in their pain. This search for meaning can become a philosophical journey, where sadness is seen as a pathway to deeper understanding and personal growth. We might also romanticize our suffering because we enjoy consuming sad media that allows us to safely explore feelings that would otherwise be painful and uncomfortable for us in real life. When we know something is only fictional, it doesn't create a sense of anxiety within us. We live in our own feelings through these experiences of sadness depicted in works of art. But it's crucial to differentiate between romanticized sadness and clinical depression. While the former can be a temporary emotional state we choose to indulge in, the latter is a serious mental health condition requiring professional intervention. Romanticized sadness often overlooks the debilitating aspects of clinical depression, such as constant feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness, lack of energy and motivation, sleep and appetite disturbances, and even suicidal thoughts and self-harm. The benefits of embracing sadness. There are undeniable benefits to embracing sadness. For example, by acknowledging and experiencing our sadness, we can better understand ourselves and our reactions to the world around us. This process can lead to personal growth and a more nuanced understanding of happiness. Shared experiences of sadness also create bonds and foster empathy. We find authenticity and vulnerability appealing, as they break down superficial barriers and allow for genuine connections. Romanticizing sadness can also be seen as a form of resistance against a culture that demands constant positivity. It gives us permission to be real and imperfect, rejecting the unrealistic standards of perpetual happiness. Potential downsides of romanticization. Despite the benefits, there are significant downsides to romanticizing sadness. For instance, it can sometimes lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms, where individuals may seek out or prolong their suffering to fit a certain narrative. Mainstream media surrounding mental illness that glamorizes depression and anxiety can send the message that these conditions are desirable or even fashionable. The glorification of sadness is the exact opposite of representation. It can trivialize real mental health struggles and prevent people from seeking the help they need. Also, constantly focusing on sadness can prevent people from experiencing the full range of emotions. It can create a self-fulfilling prophecy where individuals feel trapped in a cycle of melancholy, unable to move forward and find joy.
Let me show you how to block this ad. First, you're gonna click on this video, then you're gonna download Pi. It's an ad blocker that's still here? Let me explain. It's a free Chrome extension that's actually made by one of the founders.
Practical tips for a balanced emotional life. To appreciate the value of all emotions without getting stuck in sadness, consider these practical psychology-backed tips. Acknowledge all emotions. Remember Riley from Inside Out? Recognize that both happiness and sadness are natural parts of life. Neither should be suppressed or overly glorified. Practice self-care. Find activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, or find ways to self-soothe during times of emotional distress, like meditating, working out, or spending time with loved ones. Engage in self-care routines that nurture your mental, physical, and social well-being. Practice emotional awareness. Develop a habit of turning into your emotions without judgment. Mindfulness techniques, such as meditation or journaling, can help you become more aware of your emotional state without getting lost in it. Set boundaries with media. Be mindful of how media, including social platforms and entertainment, influences your emotional landscape. Limit exposure to
The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend personal God and avoid dogma and theology. Can you feel it? A sort of anticipation growing stronger and stronger? Another way of putting it is, time is speeding up. We've heard that discussion for a while now. I know many people are feeling it, whether it happens while observing world events, or perhaps through personal experiences in their own lives. Something big is happening. You can see signs of it all over the world. Technology is rapidly transforming the way that we live our lives. Information of literally every variety is available to us at the touch of a button. We are seeing huge debates and conversations taking place about all manner of subjects, from equality to major global issues. New cryptocurrencies appear to be on the brink of changing the way that we interface with finances and wealth. And while all the while we keep seeing warnings from scientists about global warming and overpopulation, which, if things reach some sort of dangerous climax, it has the potential to catapult us into a different way of life very quickly. And with all of these changes, we are actively in the process of discovering something amazing. We are remembering who we are. This revolutionary discovery is what will transform life on Earth into something completely different, something incredible and beautiful, aligned harmoniously with nature. So many people across the globe are learning about this, and by applying what they've learned to their lives, have come to witness marvelous changes. Some have been so impacted that they've dedicated their lives to sharing what they've learned with the world. Personally, I'm someone who's still exploring it, and I want more people to talk about it with. Mind, body, spirit. This is the sacred trinity behind life on Earth. Without even one of these three, we could not function properly. And yet, in today's world, we really only understand two of the three. We have scientifically mapped the brain and have a fairly comprehensive understanding of the body. We understand so much about each of these, yet what do we really know about the spirit, the soul? What is it? Where does it come from? For centuries, religions have been the primary source for answers pertaining to the soul, but they're not concrete. Each religion has its own answers about how things work on the spiritual level. Yet, as we've touched on, with so much information available to us, and many ancient discoveries continuing to redefine our history, there are many people now recognizing the common threads between all of these religions and putting the pieces together along with modern science, which is skyrocketing our understanding further and further into an amazing new world of freedom and delight. For a long time, these incredible insights went largely unnoticed by the global community. And while governments and secret services of the world acknowledged them, it wasn't something that really got to the masses. Yet, today, the world is waking up. Today, this information is freely available to all of us, and I'm gonna share it with you.
GoDaddy Arrow can get my business online in minutes with AI. Let's see.
Have you ever had a moment where you knew exactly what someone was going to say 2 or 3 seconds before they even started talking? Do you have a shared connection between a loved one or a pet where you can always tell exactly what the other was feeling or what they're thinking of even when they're not really around? What about that curious feeling like you were being watched, only to turn around to see yak? Yeah, just like that. We've all had experiences like these, at least a few times, some many more than others. There are even a few people who can tap into this experience quite easily, and while generally they're written off as being crazy, maybe we've been mistaken. Perhaps there's genuine validity to the idea of psychic. In the world of science, what do we really know about consciousness? We don't really know what consciousness is or how it works. This is what is sometimes called the hard problem, because there's no obvious explanation for why we should be conscious at all. And it's because of this reason that consciousness studies is one of the most exciting frontier areas of science today. For a long time, scientists believed that thoughts resided purely in the brain, and that was the end of the story. Today, however, we understand a lot more, and there are several individuals and their teams I'd love to give special commendations towards. The first scientist is a man named Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, PhD. This man has compiled a number of powerful and thought-provoking experiments which change the way that we look at and understand our minds. From his work and experiments, he puts forth the idea that the mind is not isolated inside the head at all, but extends out into the world around us as a morphogenetic field. One thing I love about this man is that he used very practical and common experiences that many of us go through on a daily basis and turned them into a wide array of powerful scientific experiments. In one particular experiment, they demonstrated the connection between dogs and humans by monitoring the behavior of the dog when the person was out of the house. And the dogs would repeatedly show behavior of waiting by the door for their human buddy as early as when the person even had the intention to go home, even from long distances away. Skeptics are often quick to respond that the dogs are used to hearing familiar car sounds, or they know generally what time their human comes home at. And so Dr. Sheldrake ran the experiments using unfamiliar cars and random and unusual times for the individuals to go home, which still yielded the same results, having the dogs wait by the door the moment that the person sets the intention to return. Dr. Sheldrake also did a number of experiments which he described as telephone telepathy, in which people would randomly call a participant and the person on the receiving end would have to guess who is calling them out of a list of possible callers. The results of this study showed a rather high level of intuition for most people, who were able to guess who was calling at a rather high rate than you would expect if it was purely random guessing. This experiment was also taken further with the sense of being stared at, where he proved that people were able to intuitively know whether or not they were being watched, with stunning results as well. Using this morphogenetic field theory, we are able to explain how herd animals move together as if they were a single unit. Dr. Sheldrake explains this by suggesting that each animal in the herd acts a bit like they were their own magnet, emitting its own unique signal into the field. But as they all come together, much like magnets, they link together to form a singular, larger field. What Dr. Sheldrake concludes through his publications and presentations is that the cosmos is not a lifeless mechanism that we have essentially believed since the 17th century, but an organic living system which is designed to evolve and grow, just as we experience in our own lives. I think my favorite line of his is that, in response to people who suggest this phenomenon is paranormal and whatnot, he simply says, "It's not paranormal, it's normal. It's not supernatural, it's natural." In the comments below, you can find links to Dr. Sheldrake's presentation that he gave at Google in 2008, as well as one to an interview he did in 2016. And there are several wonderful Gaia presentations featuring his work as well that we'd love for you to check out. The next scientist I want to share with you is Dr. Dean Radin, PhD, and his team at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. These amazing people have created a most compelling experiment where they demonstrated that using nothing but meditative thought, you can affect the outcome of an experiment from the other side of the planet in real time. Dr. Radin's talk begins by him describing that almost all of the fathers of quantum mechanics have described that something extra-physical must be involved in the measurement chain of an experiment, and by this they referred to consciousness, something outside of what we know as material reality. He then goes on to explain that they built a very simple double-slit experiment. Most of you are probably familiar with the double-slit experiment, but the simple version is that this is an experiment which shoots photons through two slits, making a pattern appear on the receiver past the slit openings. The thing about this experiment that has mystified scientists for years is that if you don't observe the experiment, the photons seem to shoot through both slits and act as a waveform, giving you a unique wave pattern in the results. However, if you actively observe the photons as they're going through the hole, the photons change their function and act more as if they were solid objects, and either go through one hole or the other, giving you a pattern on the receiving end simply as two slits, as you might expect if you were shooting a tiny BB gun through the holes. Now, what Dr. Radin and his team did was take this experiment to the next level by taking meditators outside of the room and away from the double slit machine to focus on the experiment taking place, and see if they can, using nothing but their thoughts, intentions, and consciousness, affect the outcome of the experiment. The results of this experiment were so phenomenal and conclusive that they received a 5 sigma result, which in science terms essentially means that there is only a 1 in 3.5 million chance that the positive results they received were due to statistical fluctuations over the spectrum of the experiments performed. Because of these tremendous results, the Noetic Sciences team put their experiment on the internet to really put it to the test, and between January 2012 and December of 2014, they received thousands of sessions from around the world. Once again, they received compelling results of an individual's ability to affect the outcome of an experiment irrespective of distance. People did this from across the globe and still affected the experiment's results in real time simply by the power of their meditation. Further, we should mention that these guys were incredibly thorough in their experiments, taking account of a wide array of possibilities that might be affecting the outcome of the experiment. Dr. Radin also presents towards the end of his talk that they are not the only ones who have demonstrated this, and he pulls out a number of past experiments that have been done throughout the last several decades that have come to the same conclusions, but of course didn't receive much respect from the global scientific community.
I feel genuinely nervous to release this to the public. If you are a coach, a service provider, or you sell any kind of high...
He explains that this is likely because most of science so far is based on a materialistic paradigm, and that if we add consciousness to the base in our model of the universe, as long as we can figure out the bridge between consciousness and physics, we don't have to throw out our old information, but rather just continue to add to it and develop our understanding as we always have done. If you're curious about all of the details, I highly recommend watching the full presentation on YouTube, and we'll include links to this in the comments below. What Dean and his team essentially concluded was that it's not so much that consciousness just collapses the wave function, but rather that consciousness steers the outcome of the experiment. Observational effect is an active experience rather than passive. Further, the role of consciousness in the physical world can be tested. It has been tested many times and in many ways, and the results of these experiments suggest that consciousness is an active participant in reality. Now, these experiments largely have to do with thought, feeling, and intention. But as we discussed earlier, what about the soul? Well, this is very interesting because in a book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart, she shares with us the work of a man named Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, PhD. This man and his researchers have conducted experiments that confirms the existence of biophotons. These particles of light with no mass transmit information within and between cells inside of us. His work shows that DNA in a Popp, PhD. This man and his researchers have conducted experiments that confirms the existence of biophotons. These particles of light with no mass transmit information within and between cells inside of us. His work shows that DNA in a living cell stores and releases photons, creating biophotonic emissions that may hold the keys to illnesses and health. Over the years, Popp has published 8 books and more than 150 scientific journal articles and studies which address many questions of theoretical physics, biology, over photons. His work shows that DNA in a living cell by Lynn McTaggart. She shares with us the work of a man named Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, PhD. This man and his researchers have conducted experiments that confirms the existence of biophotons. These particles of light with no mass transmit information within and between cells inside of us. His work shows that DNA in a living cell stores and releases photons, creating biophotonic emissions that may hold the keys to illnesses and health. Over the years, Popp has published 8 books and more than 150 scientific journal articles and studies which address many questions of theoretical physics, biology, complementary medicine, and biophotons. There's some great articles and videos to check out about his work, and we'll post some links to those in the comments below as well. Dr. Popp's work is especially interesting because it describes that at our most fundamental level, we are beings of light. This goes back to a number of ancient spiritual traditions and teachings who explain that we are all created beings of light, whole and complete, but have forgotten who we are, and that by our process of remembering, we can actively increase the amount of light that our DNA is emitting and raise our consciousness to a point that we may experience what is called ascension. The rising into a new way of life and a new world of possibilities opens to us, free of suffering. This is what is described by the card The Child in Patch Tarot, which fuses the 0 and the 1 together, showing the connection between the masculine and the feminine within us, the harmony between the heart and the mind in perfect balance to create the phi ratio, and speaks to the limitless possibilities that are available to us when we live from this enlightened place. Now, with balance to create the phi ratio, and speaks to the limitless possibilities that are available to us when we live from this enlightened place. Now, with all of this research out of the way, let's bring things down to a practical level for all of us. Let's say for the sake of discussion that when you think of something, anything, it appears right in front of you. No, not physically, but let's say it appears in a different realm, one that is in and around all of us, the field that the scientists were describing by their experiments. We can call it the field, the astral realm, the thought realm, whatever you like. For the sake of simplicity, in this video, let's call it the field. When you're doing something, you start by thinking about it. Whether you're building a pool in your backyard or making a sandwich, you have to have thought of it first. Even the subconscious thoughts for things like walking and breathing. This shouldn't be anything new to us. We think of things before we do them, even if it's a split second before the action. This is just how we function, and the physical actions we take generally match the thoughts that we've created in our minds. You might say that we move through our thoughts, turning non-physical thoughts into physical actions. When an inventor gets an idea, this idea can quickly move through all of his colleagues and friends, and this is because ideas and thoughts are spreadable. Multiple people can concentrate upon the same idea at once, allowing the ideas to grow and develop further. This isn't anything strange. Think tanks have existed long into our history. In this scenario, don't think of thoughts as separate, but as a whole that everyone is focusing upon at the same time, and maybe even through time itself. Of course, because we can't physically see this realm of thoughts, We have to use functions like speech and body language in order to communicate them. At least for now, this is how we connect and bridge our thoughts together, through communication. Because of this, we add a bit of our own creation to the mix every time we share something, our own spice, if you will, while still working towards the same common goal. A social gathering is another good example of this at work too. People gather together because they share the same thoughts and emotions as the rest of the people there. Even if you're using something that someone else made, which, let's face it, basically every aspect of our lives involves using something that someone else or nature itself produced, you're still creating your own experience for yourself. You manifested that iPad, house, relationship, or whatever into your experiences. With the notion that thoughts connect with other thoughts comes our first big realization. This new understanding of just how intertwined we really are. We are not only connected in the physical realm, but mentally and spiritually as well. Up until recently, humankind has always understood that they were connected only through their physical being. We assumed that the conscious experience and all of the thinking was totally 100% isolated from everyone else. The fact is, we're not. We are so connected with each other, it's almost impossible to believe. But it's true. We have the science to back it up. Now, thoughts being created are just the tip of the iceberg. The real interesting part comes when you look at emotions. Emotions are much more powerful than thoughts, in that they have more gravity. Emotions pull on you. They often control your actions and guide you throughout your life. It's not always your thoughts that decide where you sit in a classroom or on a bus, but rather if you like that girl or you think that guy smells. When a couple is together, it's their emotions that keep them tethered. If they're fighting, it's their emotions that break them apart. You watch TV or movies that stimulates and compels you on an emotional level. You hang out with friends because you have emotional bonds with them. And now this applies on a smaller scale too. Do you ever have a morning where you wake up grumpy and stub your toe getting up and just think, this is just gonna be one of those days. And then the entire day following is terrible and just everything goes wrong? What about days where you wake up excited and happy and ready to go? Your whole day is just excellent in all of the right ways. Even if something bad does happen, you're less affected by it because you're in such a great place emotionally. The reason for these different potentials in how your day goes is due to your emotional state. And to that end, if you wake up in the morning and just take a deep breath and say a prayer of gratitude for your life and the dawning of a new day, it will instantaneously align you with a more harmonious day for yourself. Even if something bad does happen, you can experience it as an opportunity for learning and growth rather than something that, sucks, poo, now I'm in a bad mood, grr. You see, it's through our conscious participation in our own lives that transforms us from riding on the waves of other people's joys and sorrows to creating our own waves and living the life we want to have.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? If you're checking your phone, stop that. Instead, try this technique from the mind science pioneer Jose Silva. You see,
You can look into society and see how we create our lives actively by the way that people speak and act. Those who are the most successful are those who talk most of success, and the people who speak most of illness have that. Yes, illness is also a creation of ours. If we have a low immune system, it's because of our own low vibration, which is a product of the disharmony both within us and in our environment. It also relates heavily with food, the primary nourishment that we put in our bodies. Food is a massive conversation on its own, and you can learn more about it in our food series, episode 33. We can liken healing with healthy food to healing from mental and emotional struggles. What quality of thoughts are you allowing into your heart and mind? In this way, healing is a simple process of going inside and addressing our own negativity, resolving the traumas, releasing the pent-up emotional energy, and making room for more light to come through. That said, one of the best and easiest ways that we've found to do this is with shamanic plant medicine, and you can learn more about that in my testimony, The Transformation of Jordan River. There's one thing that becomes apparent with this new understanding. We create our reality. We may not always be 100% in control of what happens to us. However, we are 100% responsible for what we do with the experiences that we've had. And we are especially responsible for our own healing of the bad experiences too. Throughout history, we have always played the blame game. It's his fault I didn't get the promotion. It's her fault I couldn't go to the game. It's everyone else's fault I'm so depressed. Whatever it is, and this might be the hardest part to truly get, it's you. All of it is within you. Your happiness, your sadness, your fears, and your fortunes. Every single experience of your life on Earth was because of you, for you, and within you. Remember, just as you are creating your own individual reality, we are all co-creating our realities together. We are one species, and as a species, we are creating the realities that we are experiencing as a collective. One argument I hear a lot is, well, what about the starving kids in Africa? How are they creating their starving reality? I would respond to that by suggesting that it's a part of the bigger picture, and that if we can see the bigger picture, we can bring love and support to those in need if we have more abundance than them. This applies through all levels. As a family, you create your reality, and your actions will change what the family experiences. Likewise for a community, and a city, and a country. Because of this, and because we are not in tune with ourselves, it may often seem like we do not have complete control over what we experience.
Right.
Sometimes we are seemingly forced into scenarios that are outside of our control. This happens as a result of our collective disharmony and lack of connections to ourselves and our environments. When we become more in tune with what's in our hearts, we can feel out certain scenarios and decide if that's a path we want to take. Maybe I won't go into that dark alley. Maybe it feels right to not take that job. Beyond that, even if you do have an experience that you feel is outside of your control, now it's your turn to decide what you do next. You can allow the experience to get the best of you and drain your energy, or you can decide to take it for what it is, experience it, and keep moving forward, keep growing, keep learning. Every dark cloud has a silver lining, and if you're looking for that silver lining, you'll have a much easier time finding it. Many of us have heard of this thing called the law of attraction, which talks about something similar to this. Across the entire world, people have written in to tell of their amazing stories where they really focused on meeting their heart's desire and then received it through some miracle or synchronicity. This is but a small piece in the vast ocean of the internal world that we're talking about, and it is incredibly real, and you can literally change everything in your life by the power that's inside of you. I know this from my own personal experiences, and it's not hard to find others who have too. One continuous argument I hear from people who deny this whole thing is something like, you don't just think things and change everything by sitting on your butt. To which I reply, exactly. You never stop moving. Change your mindset and continue on with your life. Cultivate your emotions, focus your thoughts, and move into them physically. Don't let your emotions control you. Pull your thoughts into the physical realm. What can you do to change things? Honestly, just start by being good to yourself. Fill yourself up with the emotion of gratitude for even the smallest things and let it fill you to overflowing. Don't forget to treat yourself once in a while and try to change your perception of your life from what others think is best for you to what you think is best for you. Take a few minutes to sit down and really ask yourself, what do you really want? Of course, at first a lot of people might think of money, wealth, fame, and luxury. And hey, I'm sure those things can be pretty nice. But will they buy you happiness? I guess that depends on you and what you do with it. I found in my experiences that beyond all of those things, what people really want is to be accepted, appreciated, and loved. By genuinely giving to others, you will in turn receive that back, and the bonds that connect you to everything around you will strengthen so much further. I want to bring up one more thing before we end this video. There was a scientist in Japan a few years back who made an incredible discovery, but one that even today is generally unacknowledged by the global scientific community. Many of us are familiar with the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto and his experiments freezing water into crystals, which would change their form depending on what emotions were meditated upon before freezing. Now, this experiment received a lot of scrutiny and several failed attempts to reproduce it. However, there is another version of it which is equally as moving. Emoto discovered that by putting words on the side of a jar of rice with water in it, and every day casting either love, hate, or unacknowledgement towards the jar, it would dramatically change the way that the rice fermented. This experiment has been performed around the world and is easily replicatable by anyone, even you. And I super encourage anyone who's interested to look up the experiment and give it a try. And for those who have trouble replicating the experiment, we might find more information with Dr. Radden's presentation, who says that there was a very clear difference in the results between practiced meditators and people whose minds tend to wander. Having a strong mental and emotional resonance will affect the outcome of the experiment significantly. If thoughts and feelings can do this to organic matter, just imagine what they can do to us. Well, Looks like we're about done for the day. But before I go, I want to leave you with words to be with for anyone looking for direction in their lives right now. You can have, do, or be anything you want. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Alright, y'all, I'm out for the day, man. I gotta go.
Thank you everyone once again for watching this whole video through. From all of us at Spirit Signs, we hope...
Yeah, I'm gonna make this a short video today. Or a short live today. That's all y'all getting from me.
The greatest chemical factory on the planet is
Y'all make sure
are a good manager of this. You can
y'all make sure y'all
that you want from within and also heighten your faculties.
keep y'all mental health up
You are
today.
making your
All right.
creation more
Peace.
significant